And the first theme we'll discuss will be represented by a couple, please, that have been working in two themes, as I get it. And they will tell us about, it's Erik Persson, Department of Philosophy, and it's Jessica Abbott, Department of Biology. And please, tell your story, or your difficulties, or whatever.
Thank you. Yes, so my first experience from this institute was 2010, 2011, when I was part of a team called Astrobiology, Past, Present and Future. And the history behind this team actually started a couple of years earlier, when there was a call for a conference funded by the European Science Foundation, where they wanted to get some kind of overview of the role of humanities in space exploration. And since I'm just both a philosophy nerd and a space nerd, I thought that would be fun. So I put together an abstract and submitted, and turned out it was accepted. And when the program came out, I found that I was not the only one from Lund University. There was also another guy, David Dunér, who is a historian of science and ideas. He had a presentation too at the same conference. And of course we talked and said that this is fun, and it would be sad if the Lund University engagement in space humanities would begin and end with this conference. We need to do something more. And we were thinking about how to do that, and we talked quite a lot. And eventually, I found a leaflet from the Pufendorf Institute. I never heard about it, but there was a call for papers, not for papers, but for teams. And we thought, this would fit us. This is exactly for people in our position. And we were thinking about how to frame this, and we agreed that we need to, it not just be humanities and space, we need to focus a little bit, and we realized that astrobiology would be good. It's interesting for both of us, and there are lots of both philosophical and historical issues, and it's a very hot topic, and everyone is interested in questions like, are we alone in the universe? And so that's good. And then David went to a meeting in Björkliden, I think, somewhere in Sweden, and he met some other people from other faculties who he talked to about this idea, and found out that they were interested in this too. And so he came back from that meeting with a team and a project proposal. And he asked me to contribute some philosophical questions there, and we did, and submitted it, and it was accepted. So this was the background of this project. We got good reviews, and it was accepted. And so we met here at the Institute 1 day a week for 10 months, as it was at that time, and we had a blast. It was really fun, but of course it was also a challenge. We had people from different disciplines, different faculties, and I think this setup where we made sure that all of us were here at the same day, at the same time, and we arranged it so that we had presentations for each other. So each of us presented her or his perspective on this from the different disciplinary fields. And I think that was very important, because that way we could learn about each other's perspectives and each other's languages. Because interdisciplinary work is very fruitful, but it's also really difficult. It's a big challenge. And I think this way of doing it was very good, because we could really kind of level the playing field. And we also had, of course, invited speakers both from outside the group, both from Lund University and from other universities around the world. And we went to study visits. We went to the Geology Museum in Copenhagen, where they have a collection of meteorites, for instance. And we went to the Mars laboratory in Aarhus. They're studying soil that's very similar to that of Mars. And we went to conferences, and we presented this project at different conferences around the world. So Pufendorf became a household name in the field, more or less. And we organized our own conferences, which were great, actually, successes. There came people from around the world, actually, and very distinguished people in the field. I remember particularly a conference we had on Ven, Tycho Brahe's island, which was essentially the first conference that focused on the history and philosophy of astrobiology. And it was a really small field, and we didn't know how it would turn out. And to my astonishment, it became very popular. People came from Europe, North America, even Australia to this conference, and all the biggest names in the field, it's a small field, but the biggest names in the field turned up. It was like NASA's chief historian, Stephen Dick, people from the SETI Institute, and from NASA, from the so-called Blue Marble Institute, which is Space and Humanities Institute starting in North America. So the people who had a name in this field, they turned up. And we felt a little bit like some guys starting a football team in the backyard, and suddenly, like Ronaldo and Zlatan came knocking and said, "Can we play with you?" And wow. So it was cool. From this conference, it turned into a special issue of the journal Astrobiology, which is a leading journal in this field, and also a book published by Cambridge scholars, also resulting from this conference. But I think the biggest thing was the contacts. We made a lot of contacts, people who we are still working with and still publishing together with today, and it was great because we were thrown directly into the cutting edge of this field. So all in all, I would say that it was really successful. We got several publications out of it, and several ideas for new projects. But the most important was maybe all the contacts we made. And one of the contacts was actually linguist here in Lund from what we call cognitive semiotics. Anna Sabagredi, who was not part of the group, but was hanging around and taking part in many of our events. And she was working with literary studies of how we relate to the other, where the other is people who are different somehow. And of course, alien life fits perfect into this. And we continue to talk about this. Lunches now and then when we had time, and we were both interested in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, for instance, and which is kind of the other and kind of alien life, not extraterrestrial, but alien in somehow. And eventually we started thinking that, well, alien life in the form of extraterrestrial life is interesting, but there are other kinds of alien life too, like synthetic life, like this Frankenstein's monster, for instance. And we realized that there is some interesting research here somewhere. And we thought, but we need to figure this out. We need to figure out some really good research questions, and we need a team, obviously. And we both realized that there is a Pufendorf project in here. So we decided to put together a team. We called our old friends from the astrobiology team and some new friends, some of which are here today, like Dinis from the astrobiology team, Maria, who is one of our new friends, who's political scientist, and Jessica. And we sat down together to formulate a new theme with this as a basis, how to relate to life as we don't know it, both ethically, but also from a legal perspective and from a biological perspective and from a conceptual perspective, and that's how the next team I was part of was formed, and I will leave the word to Jessica.
Yeah, so our theme was called Plurality of Lives, and we wanted to try to capture, all of these different aspects, as you say, sort of synthetic life, extraterrestrial life, potentially artificial life, artificial intelligence, that sort of thing. So we ended up submitting our proposal twice, because the first time it didn't get accepted, although the reviewers were sort of generally positive, but they felt like we didn't really have concrete enough sort of questions, or I don't know. Because it's very broad, we didn't really have specific things we were trying to achieve. It was more like, we want to explore this area because we think there's a lot of potentially interesting things that you could do. And so the second time around, we were successful and started working, and there were 13 of us altogether. We had a guest researcher from Durham University, yes, who was working on sort of anthropological studies of people working in STEM, and specifically space exploration. And yeah, as you say, people working on cognition and all different kinds of things. And I think that theme was also very successful, both in terms of, as you say, being a lot of fun. We all thought it was really entertaining and fun to discuss all of these ideas, and we tried to, keep it up, having regular meetings afterwards. It's hard to set aside the time, though, when you don't have this, structured format. But we've had, applications that have come out of it, and some of them have been funded, and there's one big one that we're waiting to hear back from this fall. The way we ran it was pretty much the same way. We would get together one day a week, and we took turns presenting our perspectives on these problems, and then discussing, and then a bit of time, usually in the afternoon, to sit and work on whatever our project ideas were. And there was a lot of variation in terms of how concrete an idea we had going into the project. So you and I had already come up with a sort of idea of something to work on the first time we submitted the proposal, and then we're sort of working on that on the side the whole time. One challenge, you could say, that we encountered was the fact that you were the original coordinator and then had to leave.
Yeah, I was away for a while. Yes.
Yeah, so you got a good offer to work in the United States for a year, which coincided with the period of the Pufendorf project. So Anna, that Erik mentioned before, and we took over as the coordinators of the project on site, although you were still involved in the project.
We had our Skype meetings.
Yes, we had Skype meetings once a week. So that was a bit unfortunate that, as one of the sort of main drivers behind the project, that you didn't get to participate in it full out, potentially. But yeah, no, it was a really valuable experience. And I think that there's so much talk about, interdisciplinarity, and it's so difficult to be on the same page when you have different backgrounds and stuff. And I didn't actually experience that as a problem at all. I mean, of course, you had to discuss sometimes to make sure that you were talking about the same thing. But I think in one way it was an advantage that a lot of us didn't really have like a concrete, idea or that this was a major part of our ongoing research going in, because then you can be kind of entrenched in your thinking and kind of dogmatic. And the fact that everyone was very open to new ideas, I think, was a real strength, actually, in our group. And we had sort of good personal chemistry, I would say, as well, that everybody, worked well together and got along well. So that was really nice. I felt like, being involved in this project, that was what I felt like when I first started university after high school, and you see this big world of knowledge opening up, and you're talking to people who are studying all kinds of different things, and you lose that a little bit as you specialize as a researcher. So it was really exciting to get that feeling back. Yeah, I don't know. Anything to add?
Yeah, that's true. It felt a little bit like, instead of going to work, you went to the playground with your friends and had fun. But of course, it was not it was fun, but it was also very fruitful, and a lot of interesting stuff came out.
Yeah,
of it.
exactly.
That we are still working on.
Yeah, so I think we need to have a little bit longer perspective on this project, the way you do now with the astrobiology project, in order to say, you know, what the long-term effect is going to be. Because I say we have had a couple of, you know, members who have had project grants that have come out of this project that they've received recently and are just starting to work on it more seriously. So we haven't really had time, I think, you know, and the people going into the project who didn't really have a very concrete idea what they wanted to work on, I think pretty much everyone had some sort of idea of a project or a paper that they could write or something that they could do by the end. So it was extremely, you know, useful as a sort of incubator for new ideas, which of course is one of the main aims of the theme. So yeah, so I think we'll need to wait another 5 years or something to see what the end result will be. But you know, for now, I think it looks pretty promising.
I think this astrobiology project that were 2010-11, that has led to, we can look at that from hindsight now, and we can say that has led to quite a lot. You mentioned that I was away for a while during this project, which was a blow, of course, because I looked forward to this. On the other hand, I got an opportunity that I couldn't say no to, and that emerged kind of indirectly from this astrobiology project here in Pufendorf, because one of the outcomes was this book collection of papers from Cambridge scholars, and one of the chapters in this book was a kind of introduction to the philosophy of astrobiology, where I presented some ideas for questions, just like a smorgasbord of questions, not a complete list or anything, but many of these questions have been used for applying for funding, not just by me, but also by others I have been made aware of. And one of these was from Princeton, that got actually funding from NASA for looking into one of these questions that were found in this book. And I was invited to come over and sit in Princeton and work with this project for a while. So that kind of indirectly emerged from this Pufendorf project. So there had been a lot of different kinds of stuff coming out of this.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Thank you.
We have had some congratulation telegrams also, and especially to this group. Originally, we had a third person who should be in the discussion here, and that was a guest researcher that the group had, Bruce Fawkes from University of Illinois. That's one of the points with the support of the Institute, that we should help the groups to enhance their knowledge and competence. And that's why they can invite guest researchers to stay and work with the group for shorter or longer periods. And the astrobiology theme had Bruce Fawkes working with them. And as I said, he was meant to be here today. But some weeks ago, we had this mail from him. Dear friends, please accept my sincere apologies. I will unfortunately not be able to attend the Pufendorf Jubilee. The reason is that I was contacted today and asked to make a presentation at a congressional panel on Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C., and I feel I have to accept that. But I wish to express that my colleagueship and friendship at the Pufendorf are extremely important to me, and that my experience in Lund serves as a cornerstone to propel the trajectory of my career ever since. And his career is quite good, I'd say. But however, given the current political climate in Washington, D.C., I feel a duty to make the presentation. I wish you every success, and I will be with you in spirit. That was nice, wasn't it?
Nice, very nice, yes.
And I mean, the colleagueship and friendship, that it's very much owes to you. Of course, also to the Institute, but the group is prime.
I know that he felt very much at home here at the Institute.
And many of our guest researchers do. So thank you very much, Erik and Jessica.